We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Hello, all you cool cats and kittens. Before we get started, I want to tell you about Blue Wire Hustle, a brand new program where you can host your very own podcast here at Blue Wire. Hustle was created to give everyone the opportunity to take your podcast to the next level. Or if you want to host a podcast and just don't know where to start, Hustle is the perfect place for you. As a part of the program, you'll receive personal cover art, Q&As with Blue Wire's top podcasters like Rob, access to our community Discord, and an e-learning course full of tips and tricks. And on top of that, we'll help you get your show pushed out to Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and all other listening platforms. And the best part is you can get all of this for only $15 a month, the same rate as any other hosting site would charge you for just the initial setup. Coincidentally, the same rate I pay for SoundCloud Premium. So whether you're starting from scratch or have an existing show that you want to grow, Hustle is an open door to leveling up your sports podcasting experience. Acceptance into the program is limited, so get your application in today. To apply, go to bwhustle.com/join. Check out the description box for this episode to find out more, but that is bwhustle.com/join.
Gentlemen, to another episode of the Golden Bearcast, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, and we're back. It's another episode, 2 weeks in a row, no hiatus this time. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob. Alongside me, of course, as always, is Andy. Andy, how are you doing this Monday evening?
Every time we podcast, news breaks, so looks like we're working overtime. We don't get paid overtime, but we're working overtime.
We're just going to keep putting up podcasts because people keep telling us that there's news to cover.
There's just news, more news. We got sad news. Well, not really sad news. We just have like the depressing reality that is Cal basketball. We got good news. I'm not going to spoil that, but just going to give you the teaser for the... I'm going to give an appetizer. See what I did there?
I like what you did there.
For the depressing news regarding Cal basketball. In the meantime, I was told that we should have a podcast about our favorite appetizers.
Yes.
So,
do you want to start with that? You want to start with what your favorite appetizer is? Might as well.
I feel like mine are very what I will call hashtag white boy basic.
Which are?
Dude, like I'm thinking like mozzarella sticks.
Right. Yeah. Same here. I'm thinking mozzarella sticks.
Calamari.
Oh, fried calamari is solid.
And then a little ahi tuna.
If you want to go a little fancy. Okay.
Tartar type deal.
Little tartar, little shrimp cocktail.
something like that. A little,
Yeah.
You got to have a little bouge in there.
Yeah, you got to have a little something that's not fried.
But I will say my GOAT, greatest of all time,
Okay.
chips and salsa.
It's such a simple classic, right? That's tough to beat.
There is no time in my life when I am at a restaurant and they say, "Would you like chips and salsa?"
Say no.
For the price of $3.99, I will say, "Would I like chips and salsa?" Are you kidding? I'll have as much chips and salsa as you could possibly serve me.
What is your number one chips and salsa place? Free 99 chips and salsa place in the Bay Area.
Oh, devastating. I actually don't know.
All of the taquerias and Mexican restaurants are currently listening to this podcast, holding their breath to figure out where Andy Johnston likes to get his tortilla chips and salsa the most.
Yeah, well, so the thing is, if you go back, let's go back. Let's unpack this a little bit. You go to late 90s, early 2000s Bay Area.
Okay.
The best place, and I will take this to my grave, the best place for chips and salsa in that time frame was Chevy's. Chevy's, however you want to say it.
Chevy's chips are pretty dang delicious.
That was it.
Yeah.
They had it. They owned the market. You went there, you ate 4 baskets, you threw a bunch of your own salt on it, you watched them make your own tortillas, you got the fajitas, but it was all about the chips and salsa. They even had it at Costco. It was so good. They used to sell that salsa to go to Costco. Yeah. And then Chevy's kind of,
plateaued as a franchise.
Yeah, last time I went there, it was terrible. So I can't wreck it anymore. So I think without really knowing a couple of good options, because now every place is charging for it, the two that I'll throw out, I believe at Los Pericos in San Leandro, it's free, and they have a really nice salsa bar. The other place I was going to say is a place that you and I have ate before, and a place my dad went to in college, Juan's place in Berkeley.
The thick tortilla chips are...
They give the thick tortilla chips, and I think they give a little bit of that green and red.
Yeah.
So those are my two.
I gotta say, I think I'm the same with you. Whenever I think appetizers, it's always like the fried mozzarella sticks, the onion rings, the loaded potato skins, like things like that. The one that always reminds me of like the pinnacle of it is, well, two. One is the Denny's sampler. Like,
what?
I don't know why, but the Denny's
sampler
always, for me, it's just always hits home. It's always on the dot, right? You get like the chicken strips, the mozzarella sticks, like the whole mixed bag. But by far the best appetizer in the world, in my opinion, is the bloomin' onion at Outback Steakhouse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That with that sauce is an unbeatable combination as an appetizer dish.
It's basically like an onion ring,
right?
But
better.
I love them, but better. Yeah, that sauce. I've had it once, and I don't think I ever felt worse. But
it's not something that you go out thinking, you know what? I think I had a good meal, like a healthy meal.
No,
but that's batter and oil all the way.
It was really good at the time.
It's so good. It's such a good combination. If you haven't had it, I highly recommend you get it. Another place where you can actually get it is if you go to the Alameda County Fair. There's a stall that just does the bloomin' onion with like a variety of like seasonings on top. You can get the original, but like they have a variety of seasonings on top and a variety of sauces you can pick from. Not quite the same, but it's like fresh.
That's
it's
good
like
knowledge.
You see them do the chopping of the onion where it like blooms like a flower. You see them dredge it and like deep fry it, and they like kind of pass it on. You see the whole process. So I highly recommend that. And then you get a Dole Whip after you're done eating that. You have your night complete. Pineapple soft serve, my friend.
Oh,
that's dessert. But
that sounds lovely.
Yeah,
lovely. Hey, I have a question for you.
All right.
Do you think that Yogurt Park is possibly involved with a chain yogurt place called Yogurt Express?
Where's I haven't heard of Yogurt Place or Yogurt Express. Where is the closest
Yogurt Place? Am I talking about Yogurt Place? Did I just call it Yogurt Place?
You called it Yogurt Place.
This is why we shouldn't record after 9 o'clock. Oh my gosh. Yogurt Park.
Yeah. Yogurt Park, is associated with.
Oh, I just called the other one Yogurt?
You called the other one Yogurt Place. I thought it was an actual brand.
Oh,
I thought it was an actual brand called Yogurt Place.
No. It's in Castro Valley. I thought it was called Yogurt Express, but I was just there. But Diana brought it up. And
does it taste similar? Is that why?
It was, it tastes very similar. And you just type this in.
Maybe it's an homage.
So we had a thought that maybe.
But why wouldn't they just put out a place with their name on it then?
I don't know.
Out there. That's a very good question.
Yogurt Deluxe. Okay, wasn't quite Express, but hey, not terribly
same vein of thought.
So
Yogurt Place Express.
Actually, it does look very similar, and the flavor options very similar. So it was.
Could it be like a rip-off in terms of like a bootleg version of it? Like
there's also a bear in the logo.
I just don't know why they would dilute their own brand by calling it something else, though.
Yeah, well,
it's all very intriguing.
These are the unsolved mysteries.
What's that Italian ice place in Castro Valley in like Pleasanton?
Rita's?
Rita's, yes. Rita's is bomb. That's a good ice cream like dessert place.
All right, I'll go there this weekend.
I love that
tomorrow.
I love that place. I just can't. It's so far to like go out there. Yeah, it's close to you.
Bro, this is where I live.
Yeah.
Rita's. This is 5 minutes.
But you got
6 minutes for me.
Here's the thing with Rita's though. You got to call them in advance before you go and be like, "Hey, do you guys have like soft serve today?" Because sometimes like their machine breaks, especially towards the end of the night, or they don't refill it. And if you just get the ice without the soft serve on top of it, it's meaningless going to Rita's. The whole point of you going is to get the custard on top of the shaved ice. So if they don't have it, then it's a worthless trip.
That's good. That's a good rec.
You need to know.
This is what the people come for.
This
the
is
appetizers and the
appetizers. Yes.
Now we got the entree.
Good transition. I like it. I like it a lot. We roll on to a new segment or a new way of breaking up our podcast. We're going to start with some Barry news. So first with some Barry good news. Some Barry good news. Former Cal golf student athlete, player, Max Homa has won the Genesis Invitational this past weekend.
In a playoff.
It was very cool. The little cherry on top was that I believe it was Tiger Woods who handed him the trophy, which was a little fun little Cal Stanford nod thing. But I like it.
So he must have been at Cal our years, 3 of the 4 years.
Yeah. There's a few guys like that, like Max Homa, Byung-hun An, I believe, and one more I can't remember, but around our same. If you go to rideforcalifornia.com, our very own Ray has put up a really good article on it with a bunch of the tweets and GIFs of his shots all in there. Highly recommend you go read it and look. But man, he was like solid in this towards the end, especially in the playoffs. Like he was just on it. He like read the greens perfectly. His pars were great. Or his putts were great. Absolutely stellar. And he won, I believe, like what is it, like 1.3 million winnings? Not a bad day.
Not a bad time to donate to Cal football or Cal basketball for that matter. If you want to bring Dennis Gates in.
Oh, Andy is fully on that train.
Slide in with a little donation.
Help us build that practice facility wherever that ends up, if it even ends up happening. But
we'll build it in San Francisco because it'll be cheaper out in San Francisco.
We're like the opposite Warriors. Like we're gonna build a facility out there and then practice over there and then have games here. Yeah, but that was great news. That was some good news. one more piece of good news that Andy alluded to earlier is today, a mere 3 hours ago, Cal football hires Jeep. I don't know how to say their last name. Is it Christ?
Christ.
It's Christ, right? Okay, Christ as their new tight end coach. Andy is a big fan, but let me just read you through what our dear friend Peter wrote for WriteForCalifornia.com. George Paul, quote-unquote, Jeep Christ, is as NFL as it gets. 25 years since he was named an NFL TE coach for the Arizona Cardinals, 30 if we include quality control work for the Chicago Bears. His most notable work came as quarterback coach for Harbaugh with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick in that era, and his OC work for the 2015 Niners under Jim Tomsula. Most recently, he was the tight end coach for the Denver Broncos, where he coached under Bill Musgrave during the 2017-2018 season. This is what Wilcox had to say about the hire. Jeep is a highly respected football coach who has experienced success at the highest level. He has a strong understanding of what we are doing on offense, and he will do a great job coaching and developing our tight ends to maximize their potential. We are pleased that we are able to attract Jeep to our program. Some fun notes here. He is the brother of Paul Christ, who is the head coach at Wisconsin, which Wilcox worked under as his DC for a year before he came to Cal, and is that's the connection there. He was also, of course, as you mentioned, or as it said, he was a tight end coach under Bill Musgrave with the Denver Broncos. His coaching tree includes the likes of John Fox, Jim Harbaugh, Bill Musgrave. I believe he also, I don't know if he coached with or under, but with Ron Rivera. So it's a pretty hefty list. And some other fun notes is that I believe he was on the staff with the Carolina Panthers for 4 years, coaching tight ends. During that time, Coach Gerald Alexander was a player for the Carolina Panthers. I don't remember for how long, but at least in his final year there, he was a player there. And one more fun note, Vlad tweets at us, and he says, also a fun fact, he talking about Christ, was on the 1990 Wyoming coaching staff when Cal beat them in the Copper Bowl. Fun notes.
That's a deep pull.
That's a deep cut. Yeah,
Vlad's always good for those. If you guys don't follow Vlad, you should.
He's got the deep cuts.
He's got the best deep cuts. I think he has one job and one job only. I mean, that's obviously not true. But for the sake of conversation, his role is to develop Jermaine Terry.
Yep.
That's it. That's all he's got to do. If he wants to be successful.
For the next year. For the next year at the very least, outside of recruiting.
2 to 3 years. Yeah. Just do that. Yeah, just do that. That's all he's got to do. And I think, I think that these older coaching hires, look, the bottom line, jury's still out on Musgrave. If you read Nick's article today, which anyone should read about sort of the new coaching staff era of Cal football.
What he calls Wilcox 2.0.
Wilcox 2.0. As you'll know that nobody is looking at last season and saying that was the Musgrave offense we're going to get. But also no one's looking at last season saying, I'm positive we're going to get, some sort of extremely different offense.
Yeah, so light the world on fire.
Right. And the truth lands probably in between those two options. But this type of hire to me is not. It's not the opposite. It's just different. It's like it's not the Hayward hire. It's it's not what was Marcel Yates. It's not the Yates hire. It's not. It's more of what I think they're trying to do at Arizona State, which is say, hey, we're the pro program. If I am Jermaine Terry or any of the tight ends currently at Cal, I'm thrilled. I get to work with a coach that was in the NFL for years, has an incredible resume, has coached all sorts of different players and talent. You're just going to learn a lot. So from that opportunity, it's fantastic. I think it does impact recruiting, especially if you look at the person he's replacing, who, Tui, for all the hard times the knocks we kind of give him, still was starting to bring in some pretty solid tight end talent. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I'm high on it because I think it's I do look at this being like kind of like a high floor hire.
Yep.
And I don't necessarily see it as being a bad thing to bring in someone that has, that much experience and previous experience as an offensive coordinator who can look at like the quarterbacks. Like if you're Chase, you also have to be excited because now you have, someone that was overseeing Alex Smith transition from bust number 1 overall pick to, at of time, the savior of the Niners, and then jilted ex-lover, and then
he basically turned him into a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL because he's still touted as a starter, right?
Oh, if not better than that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was top 15,
yeah,
top 10, maybe creeping in the top 10 a couple of those years.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm remembering that too favorably, but no, he was Alex Smith's journey. It was impressive, and Jeep had a big part in that. So I think it's just a benefit to the offense. I don't know how much I would say it benefits the position, but I think it benefits the offense, and it definitely benefits Terry. Terry is going to be so good now. That's going to be awesome. Like that's why I think that's a great hire. And if he's only in it for 2 to 3 years anyways, then sweet, just coach this dude for your entire career and make him elite, and that's fine. Like I'll take it. But yeah, what do you think, Rob?
I think the same as you. I think you made the good points. It's a floor raising hire. You didn't really need to swing for the fences here, right? You didn't need the Hayward type hire. You didn't need the Yates type hire. You didn't need you didn't need to take that risk, is what I'm saying. And some people might look at this and say this is still kind of a risk because he hasn't coached college football in so long. But I think coaching football travels. It's the recruiting part of it that doesn't really translate. And that's where it gets a little bit questionable. But at the same time, you have such an established recruiting group on the offensive side of the ball. Like Musgrave's been here a year already, and he's already pulled how many 4-star guys, right? And you have guys like Burl Toller and Aristotle Thompson and even Angus McClure, of course. So I think you could take that quote unquote gamble. I don't think it's really a gamble, but in the recruiting sense, you're taking that gamble to bring in like an NFL, coach who can do that. The thing I think a lot of people are missing here, and they're going to look at his, resume of tight ends that he's worked with, and you're going to see the stats. And we were talking about this between you and me earlier. Like they're not too outstanding. He hasn't coached a superstar. Like he didn't coach a George Kittle. He didn't coach an Antonio Gates. He didn't coach that type of player that was like 1,000-yard pass catcher and double-digit touchdowns. He wasn't that dude. But Peter in our Right for California Slack made a really good really good point about the NFL is like the creme de la creme, right? It's like the top of all of football. And if you've been coaching in that small group of people for 30 years, you must be doing something right. You can't be like, you might not have had the best guy, but you were doing well enough that people held you to respect to constantly hire you back to do something else in the NFL. And I think that stands for something. Granted, he hasn't been in the NFL for 2 years, but who knows what reason that is, whether, you want to take a break, like who knows what it is. But like to consistently coach in the NFL for 25 years without like a single, hiatus, that's impressive. And I think now on the offensive side of the ball, we have 2 coaches that coach in the NFL, like in prime time, right? And Chris freaking went to the Super Bowl. Like he has that experience, like that he can throw out on the table. Like I think it's cool having players, ex-NFL players as coaches, because they can teach the kids about what it's like to be, in the NFL. But realistically, if you want to succeed in the NFL as a player, not only do you have to do your own things, but you have to know how to learn from those NFL coaches well. And a guy like Chris, who's been coaching in the NFL for 30 years, is going to be able to teach you that know-how and that how to absorb that type of information. So I think that's like the key here. And then with the Musgrave hire now, I think it looks even more so. Like Come on in, guys. We have a tight end coach who used to coach quarterbacks. We have a quarterback quarterback coach and OC who's a former NFL OC. Like, we got you in terms of coaching. Like,
And Chris was a former OC too.
Exactly. He did coach. He was an OC for a year too. So, yeah. So that's why I think this is actually a solid hire. Once again, like the Hayward hire, I think you and I both. The reason we're kind of shocked is because we didn't think we can pull this kind of name. Like, this wasn't a name any of us were considering. And it just, like, he just happened to hop in.
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking about as you've been talking. It's like, man, there's just something I would always be so curious to know, like, what these coaches are thinking when they're saying, yeah, Cal feels like the right fit. Is it fun for them to jump back into the college game? Is there something that Wilcox has established that they want to be a part of? But it's hard to look at this staff and not see them as a staff that could transition to the next level. If Cal were to have a lot of success, way more than we've had in the last decade and more, it's not impossible for me to look at in an NFL team being like, damn, this is a very pro-friendly team and pro-friendly staff. But I think that the league is going a different direction. It's going to young offensive minds. We're like the throwback team. We're like, 100% like the throwback team.
Yep.
And we'll see if it works. I mean, Utah is kind of the blueprint here, and it's worked tremendously well for them. So I'm optimistic.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, this might be a bad analogy, but you know what this reminds me of? The style of offense and the style of team we're trying to build. We're trying to play like the Memphis Grizzlies, like right with the grind and like the hustle and grind type team, like right as the Warriors were like exploding with that like perimeter shooting, fast high octane offense.
Everybody forgets they were all scared of the Grizzlies.
The Grizzlies were
always so
the Grizzlies
scared.
were great. The Grizzlies were great. It's just it never fell their way, and that's kind of the dichotomy you have here, like with the NFL turning into that more offense focused, less defense. But then we're like, nah. We're going back to the old days. We're gonna focus on defense. We're gonna focus on the run game, controlling the ball, and yeah, as you said, the Utah blueprint. It's just I just want like Utah plus like maybe 10% of like Chip Kelly, Oregon. Like just 10% of like just those like big time plays, because I don't know if I could handle watching Utah type of offense and that type of football, like just that. I want a little bit more excitement.
You and everybody else. If I could just have a combination of Chip Kelly's Oregon offense with the Steve Sarkisian Alabama offense.
I realize how that's going to sound, and I'm now regretting it or saying it. But we don't delete things here on the Bearcast unless we say something totally absurd. So I don't think it's that absurd.
Definitely not. It's delete worthy.
It's right. All right. Well, I think we talked enough about the tight end coach. Let's move on to the other side of the ball. And we move on to some very bad news. Oregon has hired Marcel Yates as their new defensive backs coach. He basically is a coaching swap. We coached Hayward for Yates. You got any thoughts?
It's crazy times. I don't know what to expect with every time I say that. Okay, I think last week we said, I was like, oh, this has got to be the end of these coaching moves, and there's more and more happening. So I think that losing Yates is a bummer because he was a really good recruiter and seemed to have been, like, we didn't seem to miss too much in the secondary last year. So I think this one hurts. I think this one might hurt a little bit more than DeRuyter leaving. Like, TDR leaving felt like, okay, yeah, maybe you can reload. We'll see how much Wilcox influences the defense and, look at Sermon. But this one, to me, depending on who we hire, of course, to backfill, and we always do well. So at this point, I'm confident. But, This one definitely hits a little different. I don't know. What do you think? Are they going to move Hayward to DBs, open up a position to bring in somebody at linebackers? Like, where's your head's at?
I think that's a very good question. I think that conversation has to be happening behind the scenes, right? But at the same time, like with how the tight end hire happened today, like it just dropped. Like there was no like Bruce Feldman tweet of like Cal is looking to hire former NFL coach. Like you know what I'm talking about, right? Those like leaked tweets. We didn't get any of that. It just Cal football just tweeted out. We've hired him.
Yeah. So welcome to Berkeley.
Yeah. So like, who knows? We could get that tomorrow. But I would assume that those conversations still have happened. I don't think. I mean, it sounds like they convinced Hayward to come down to Berkeley and coach offensive outside linebackers because it was hey, if you want to become a DC, like I've done it. Like from Wilcox's perspective, yeah, I've done it. And if you want to do it, you got to be able to coach other positions, right? You gotta be able to step in, just in case hirings don't go in your way and whatnot. I mean, I'm assuming that's how the conversation went. And so he made that choice, and he's down here, right? What's to say you don't have that conversation again? It's like, do you want to go back to coaching DBs? Like, I know I sold you on that. Like, it's such an awkward conversation to have where you like sell a guy on a specific position, and then only to like turn around and be like, do you actually want your old job back? Like, I know I said you might be good for the new one, but do you really want the old one back? Because you're really good at your old job. So I don't know how that conversation goes, but I mean, I think that's a potential there. I mean, we'll talk about coaching vacancies as we transition too, but when we were talking about tight ends, all those, like, we threw out all those hypotheticals, right? Do you move Regal back to tight ends, hire a special teams coach? Like, what other things can you mix and match? And I think now that we have the tight end position filled, it's about the DBs, and you have like Hayward right there. Honestly, judging by how Wilcox has done it so far, I think you can take a gamble on a DB coach because you have Hayward. And the reason I'm trying to read the tea leaves here, because remember last year, the one thing that they were trying to develop was that star position, which was the hybrid outside linebacker or safety role. If they're still trying to develop that position, then the outside linebackers coach and the DB coach has to work in tandem. Because you have to switch off players, right, back and forth between the star position, like the star position guys, like practicing with the outside linebackers and practicing with the DBs. If that's the case, and they're continuing that trend, you can have Hayward kind of anchor that. And then for linebackers too, if Hayward needs the help because he's a first-time linebackers coach, you have Wilcox that can step in because he was a linebackers coach, and you have Sermon who can kind of carry that load too. So I think DB-wise, you can take a little bit more of a risk here and maybe go with a GA type hire, not grad assistant like when we hired Gerald Alexander, remember, like that type of hire, high risk, high reward.
I think this when you go more recruiting again, recruiting heavy, like recruiting first. But I don't know if you can find somebody out there that mixes well with both of those, where they can kind of coach up and have the recruiting prowess. Be great.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll find out soon enough. Maybe we'll have to record another podcast in 48 hours just because we hired another DB coach and someone else got hired away from our staff.
I would bet a lot of money on that. At this point, it's a better bet than GME. It's just sad, so sad.
Diamond hands to the moon. All right. We're going to transition here into an article that Avi wrote for Right for California, which is the assistant coaching vacancies and who can fill them. Tight end coach was already filled, so we don't really need to talk about that anymore. I mean, a lot of even myself was like, ooh, Alonzo Carter, the San Jose State running backs coach, former back dancer for MC Hammer. I think a lot of us were like, oh, if we're going to go with the Bay Area hire, like that would be one to take. But we're not here to talk about that because that one's already filled. We're going to talk about DB coaches. The coaches he named as just some potentials is Gabe Franklin, who's the Boise State safeties and nickels coach. The reason that's there is because there is some connection there with like Aristotle Thompson. There's a picture of Aristotle Thompson with Gabe Franklin visiting Oakland High. And Franklin, what he wrote here was, Franklin was mentioned as a potential candidate for secondary coach last year before Yates was selected. Franklin graduated from Boise State in 2004, graduated from Bishop O'Dowd in Oakland, and already did one stint as an administrative assistant with Cal in the late 2000s. Although Franklin didn't overlap with Justin Wilcox, he did coach alongside Cal defensive line coach Andrew Browning at UTEP in the 2010s. Boise State's pass defense has greatly been ranked in the top third of college football. So the local aspect is there. I don't believe there's any local coaches on the defensive side of the ball, right? Because you have Burl Toller on the offense. You don't have that on the defense. So a guy who went to Bishop O'Dowd, I think you get some pull there, and you get to bring him home. The other name was Eric Williams, San Jose State defensive back coach. Everyone's just poaching San Jose State now, right? Because they did so well. Their quarterback coach just got poached by UCLA. But anyways, Williams is the local candidate with 2 years of experience with the Spartans. Williams played his college ball at Oregon State, so it's likely Hayward, the former defensive backs coach, has kept some tabs on him. San Jose State ball hawked in 2019 with 16 interceptions. And the last two, first one is Julius Brown, Fresno State's recruiting coordinator. Brown has almost a decade of experience with Wilcox dating back to the Boise State days. Brown was a grad assistant and then director of player personnel. He then moved on to a decade of coaching the secondary in places like Arkansas State, Texas Tech, Utah State, and another return to Boise. Brown could provide a nice boost to Cal defensive recruiting efforts in the Central California area, a place the Bears haven't performed up to par in landing commits in the last decade. The last one would be going back. We're going to poach Oregon again. Rod Chance, Oregon cornerbacks coach. Cal has already made one trade for Oregon assistants. Why not offer Chance the opportunity to coach the entire secondary and team up with Keith Hayward yet again? Chance's track record dating back to Minnesota as a cornerbacks coach and a defensive coordinator at Southern Utah has been stellar. Those are the choices that Avi put out.
I'm all in on Chance.
You're all in on Chance.
That's what I was immediately going to go look up. I was like, who's coaching Oregon quarterbacks? Okay, cool. Let's go take them.
I mean, I would say, like, from this particular list, I would go with Rod Chance or Gabe Franklin. I
think from that list, I think it's going to be somebody outside the list.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What about the list, like, doesn't appeal to you? Or like just from the trend, like you don't think that it like matches up with what we're going to try and do?
It's not that it doesn't appeal to me.
Well, I mean, it clearly, like one of these guys isn't just like, oh, I want him.
Because I'm thinking like the last time we hired a DB coach, nobody thought we would have pulled Marcel Yates, and like look what we did, you know. And I think that would have been the high. So that's sort of why I was like, I mean. It's good research. I think Chance is, my personal choice, but I do wonder if it'll be. It seems to me like a lot of those candidates are a bit more like up and coming than I think maybe we'll go. But who knows?
Could be another NFL guy. So here's the thing: the name that I threw out on Twitter. Just threw out there with the Cal connection. Thomas Deku.
Yeah.
That's the name I threw out there.
I was going to say.
NFL starting caliber guy, Cal guy through and through. I believe he's coaching here in the Bay Area, if I'm not mistaken. He goes to Andy and my gym. Like, I've seen him just there working out. So, yeah, he's around. I mean, that would be like what a stellar thing, right? To have Burl Toller, like former Cal great, on the offensive end, and then have Thomas Deku on the other side.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Like, that'd be fun. I think fans would love it.
Yeah, I'm all in on that. That sounds great. 100%. Bring
Give
back
me Thomas
Deku.
Give me Deku. Give me Deku.
I think I was friends with Deku on Facebook for a while.
I think I was too.
Yeah, and then he... Yeah. How many times do you think I've said that on the podcast? Over under 3. Probably taking that over.
Friends. Well, I mean, when we were in college, like, you just added people on Facebook. Like, you know, I looked up all the Cal football athletes and added them on Facebook. Whether they accepted my friend request was a totally different story. But at one point, I was friends with Ryan Anderson, Javed Best. Like, there was a list. There was a pretty good list. I'm still friends with Justin Forsett. So
yeah, same.
And Marvin Jones. I'm still friends with Marvin Jones and Justin Forsett. So it's.
I think the funniest one was when my buddy friended Brandon Belt when he was in the minors, and he was friended Brandon Belt when he was in the minors, and then he wished Brandon Belt a happy birthday like 5 or 6 years after he was in the league, and then Brandon Belt immediately defriended him.
That sucks. You just gotta stay in the crowd, man. You just gotta stay in the background and just act like you don't know anything. That's the way to do it. 2 more little bits of news or discussions. First one is and this is where it gets to get a little down, but we'll start talk. Well, first one is actually not that bad. Women's basketball. They beat Arizona State this past weekend, 67-55, led behind Leilani McIntosh's 21 points, 5 of 7 from the field, 4 of 4 from the 3-point line, and 7 of 7 from the free throw line. The women's basketball team has gone through so freaking much this season. It's quite spectacular. I believe at one point in the season, they did not have a single scholarship guard available because everyone was out due to injury. And they actually had to have Mia Maestrov. She came in January and was immediately added to the team. And she had 12 points in this game. And she took 11 shots. She was the team leader in field goals attempted. So having to have a freshman come in mid-season to do that for you. But the Bears get that win, maybe something to build towards. And it looks like, you know, they're starting to round out, like especially the 5-star players that Sharman Smith brought in last season or last recruiting class into this season. They're slowly starting to grow a little bit, and that's where the fun lies.
The opposite of Cal basketball then, or men's basketball then?
Well, I mean, if you're a first-time she's a first-time head coach. Mark Fox is not. But if your first season at Cal, which was the exact same year, right? If you come in and one brings in 5-star recruit, 3 5-star players, and the other brings in a bunch of 3-star guys that aren't even in the rotation anymore, I think there's a drastic difference.
Didn't Monty bring in a lot of 3-star guys, though?
He did, but are we comparing Monty's like coaching prowess to Mark Fox's? Because I mean, we know. I think Monty is by far. We already know Monty's by far a better coach, right? He's like a college Hall of Famer, with who he coached, how he coached. I mean, the thing that people say about Monty when he was at Cal, like towards the end, he just didn't want to recruit anymore, right? And like that, if he had stuck with his recruiting, like who knows how that final class at Cal that he brought in might have ended up. Like we got Jabari, who was the 5-star guy, but there were 2 other 5-star guys in the Bay Area that year, which was Marcus Lee and Aaron Gordon. And if we had pulled the 3 of them together, like holy crap, that's like a totally different team that we're going into. And if history played out exactly in terms of the coaching and he decided to retire, like that's Konzo Martin like leading into his second year with Jabari Bird, Aaron Gordon, or his first year with Jabari Bird, Aaron Gordon, Jordan Matthews, like, Marcus Lee. That's that. Yeah, I don't want to even talk about the potential there, but yeah, but we know like Monty was a better coach. He is a better coach, whether it's in game or like coaching and player development. We just never saw that with. Historically, we haven't seen that with Mark Fox in his 9 years at Georgia. So we transition from women's basketball into some men's basketball talk. Andy, you said you might watch a game this week. Did you watch a game this week?
No. You told me not to. The direct orders.
I did. You said, and I told you, what did I say to you?
Only one person should have to watch this misery.
Exactly. And I was more than sufficient. But, I mean, as an outsider, right, like, I know you get a lot of your opinions on the team, and you have faith in the opinion of the team on, like, myself and Nick. But from, like, the things that you've seen on Twitter, as, social media is not a great gauge, but the things that you've seen on Twitter, or, like, the articles on Right for California and whatnot, like, what's your overall, like, thought behind the team and behind this current era of Cal basketball under Mark Fox?
It's really hard to evaluate. I've been pretty consistent with my whole, if there were fans in the stadiums and or if there were not fans showing up to the stadium, the pressure would be and the noise would be a lot louder. I think I'm just super frustrated by it more so than anything else in where we've allowed this program to go. If you just look at like the historical, I think Avi has been tweeting a lot about the historicals. It's just downright depressing. There's no other way around it. So I think as an outsider, for me, I'm just kind of frustrated. And so like for me, the casual fan, I'm just like frustrated by the ambivalence or the irrelevance of the program. In that like the fans are apathetic. Nobody cares. I have not one Cal basketball text in my Cal thread. My Cal Sports thread. And those are guys that are like the bench, like on the bench, really into it, would never miss a home game. Yeah, I think in Monty's best year, they literally went to every single home game. And these are the people that are now just completely tuned out. So that's the reality of, and so that's why I say it's like, man, I don't know. Like some people would tell you be patient in college basketball. I'm like, dude, F it. Pull the trigger. Go get Gates. You only have this option right now. Gates will be gone. Go get him while you still can, and just undo. Like you don't. It's like the sunk cost fallacy. Like you just don't fall victim to it. This is not the time. It's not the time. And the people that I trust most, that care the most, that know more than me about basketball, are all saying the same thing. That's the thing. Normally you'd get like, oh no, like I'm the optimistic one. And then you'd have like the crafty stats person who's like, well, statistically, right? Then you have another person who's like, the downer of the group who's like, oh no, they're really bad, they need to make the change now. No, every single one, whether you go from a statistics standpoint, the analytical standpoint, you go from the optimistic standpoint, you go from the pessimistic standpoint, they're all saying the same thing, that this team is progressively getting worse game over game, and that the progression towards any sort of improvement or the outlook towards improvement is increasingly dim. And to me, that says it all. So that I can sit back and I can just see that and be like, those are a lot of people that know way more about this, that pay way more attention than me, that are all saying the same thing. And so that's why I get behind them like, yeah, let's move on.
You want to read the fun? I'll read the fun tweets from Avi and myself this past week. All right. First one from Avi. Cal men's basketball has won 39 combined games in the last 4 seasons. Pick any 2 years from the preceding decade of Cal hoops, and the lowest combined win total you'll get is 35. The other one. Viking Jones won his first 3 road games as Cal men's basketball head coach. Since then, Cal is 3 of 33 and 37 in its last 40 road games. Last one from Avi. Cal men's basketball wins the last 4 years, 39. Cal men's basketball double-digit losses the last 4 years, 56. 56 double-digit losses, 39 wins.
How do nuke a college basketball program in 10 healthy steps by Mike Williams?
You know what? And I tweeted this out yesterday. I looked up this history and it was hilarious that I figured out the timing. History is a flat circle. Dennis Felton was fired by Georgia in 2009. Mark Fox is hired by Georgia from Nevada in 2009. Dennis Gates is hired by Nevada as an assistant coach in 2009. Dennis Felton is fired by Cleveland State in 2019. Dennis Gates is hired by Cleveland State in 2019. And Mark Fox is hired by Cal in 2019. 10 years apart. 10 years apart. Funny how that goes. The last one from me is a little fun math thread that I did on, I think, Saturday night. All right, so this is on Fox's record and wins and losses. All right, so we had 3 conference wins within 5 points last season out of our total 7 conference wins. Tracking with me so far?
Yep.
Okay. On the flip side, we only had 3 games where we lost within 5 points last year.
Okay.
So, if you flip the wins and losses to get like a max of like what would have been if we had flipped those games, right? If we had won the games that we were within 5, or if we had lost all those games that we were within 5, like what's our worst version? What's our best version? We would be 4-14, 4 wins and 14 losses, or 10 wins and 11 losses. And this is just conference. I didn't calculate out of conference because the variance is so high because of who you're playing. Like, I only think conference wins matters anyways, especially in basketball because of the amount of games you play. This season, every conference win, we've only won 3 games so far, was more than 5-point wins, right? Every game, we won by more than 5 points. Only 2 losses this season were within 5. 6 of our losses this year were within double digits. 9 of our, and then the leftover 9 were 10-plus point deficits. 4 of those 9 10-plus deficits were actually 15-plus deficit losses. So our variance with winnable games this season, we would be 3-15 because there's no games that it would flip negative because we all won them more than 5. And if you flip the 2, there were only 2 games that were within 5, which means we'd be 5-12. So your variance goes from 4 wins to 10 wins into this season, which is 3 wins to 5 wins with 2 games left to go. Right? It's not the end all, but in terms of college trajectory trend, you actually want a more volatile discrepancy in variance. Like you want it to be bigger because that means you're in more close games, right? Within 5 points, and like within, I think, the year 2, year 3 mark, like you want those games to start to increase. You want to be in more competitive games. You don't want to be getting blown out. But that's exactly what's happening. We're actually going further down. And Viking Jones won 3 games in his 3 conference games in his final season at Cal. That includes 1 conference or 1 win at the Pac-12 tourney. If Mark Fox doesn't win another game this season, whether it be the 2 Oregon schools this week or game 1 at the Pac-12 tournament, he'll have the same conference record as Viking Jones when Viking was fired. The question that I have now is why is Mark Fox given the leeway that Viking really wasn't?
Wyking got 3 years.
2.
No way.
2 years.
Oh, he only got 2?
Mm-hmm. 2 and gone. He actually recruited better than Fox over two seasons.
Much better.
Yeah.
Wyking really did get 3 years? Hot damn.
Yeah.
He did. I mean, he did some stuff off the court that was just awful.
Yeah. There's so many things we keep.
I will tell you why. The biggest one. Why will Mark Fox? We can leave race out of this for now, but I think that's a worthy part of the discussion. Is that if you look at the contract that we gave to Mark Fox, it's way different than what we gave to Wyking.
Right.
Wyking was 5 year, $5 million, $1 million a year.
Flat. Yeah.
Yeah.
No buyout.
Mark Fox is $8.25 million over 5 years. Right. I mean, I think fundamentally it starts there. Then I think you look at the off-court stuff. Okay, so you had like former players that are like writing pieces about how you did them dirty. We had the blow-up with Theo. And then I think you have a racial component to it. That it's always worthy of, it's a worthy conversation to be having. About, how do we give somebody more leniency because they're white male, because of the systems of support, and that's just is what it is. It's a bias that exists system wide. So
yeah. And that's not anything like against Mark Fox or against Wyking either. It's just
it's
just
could be a reason why someone gets an additional year.
Yeah.
But I think for me it starts with the contract, and the money's going to talk, and the money's going to talk now, dude. The money's going to talk loud this year because you're not getting revenue, and you're not having students on campus or in in class. That's going to hit in a totally different way. So for a university that's probably taking cuts across the board, if not most certainly, are they really going to be like? That's what I'm saying. Max Homa wants to slide in with a little donation. That's what it's going to take. So I think it would take a really motivated basketball alumni.
I mean, it's one of two things, right? From the financial standpoint, it's one, donors go up to the AD and is like, I'm not donating a single cent until we make a coaching change. Or you have the flip side of the argument is, here's the money, please make a coaching change.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it has to go. And it's just really, really depressing. I think the big thing here is that you can't look at Fox and his record and go, no, I'm gonna hope that he pulls through and gets good, right? Because the fundamental issue that most of us had when this hire was made was, what is the ceiling with Fox? Is it 2 NCAA tournament appearances in 9 years? Like, is that what we're going for? Is it sitting somewhere between like 8 and 5 of a 14-team conference for the majority of his tenure there? Like, what is the aim here, right? Is if that's what you're going for, like, yeah, you made the perfect hire, and yeah, he'll come good on it. Give him 8 years, he'll come good on it for sure. We might not even get the 2 NCAA appearances, but he'll come good on the rest. But right now, it's like if he's going to pull through and he'll come good for us, what is your expectation of what is good? Because if it's that mediocre bar in the middle, yeah, we'll get there. But if that's your expectation for the program, why are you even rooting for college basketball? Right? Like, the whole point of sports fandom is to see your team win. It's not to see it stand in the middle of the pack. Especially not in American sports. It's different with some European sports like soccer. Like, you understand where your team is and you're just hoping that you don't drop into relegation and whatnot, but that's a totally different conversation. I think with American sports, you root for your teams because you want your teams to win. Hell, we have no ties here. You have to win or lose a game. It's a game that's built on wins and losses, and he's losing a lot of games. And there's no hope right now that recruiting is going to help impact this team even better. Right?
Well, I mean, it's also like not just losing games, but it's like losing to opponents like Washington State and Washington. Like, these are not good programs. So it's not like just like, okay, yeah, like we went up against a tournament eligible team or tournament bound team and lost. It's like, dude, like, no, you're getting blown out by some of the worst teams in the conference. How is that even possible? So that's why you don't deserve year 3. That's it.
Like, how is that okay? Like, how is that standard okay? Right? Like, you have Washington fans calling for Mike Hopkins' head already for this one season when he just won you a title a couple years back, right? And of course, that's why Hopkins is going to get at least another year. He'll start to his seat's going to be definitely warm going into the season because of how bad this season was, but he still gets that leeway because he won you a freaking title. And like Bobby Hurley is going to get that too with ASU because, you know, they're going to, like, I think in Bobby Hurley's situation, it's like one of those, yeah, you can really toss it to COVID. Like, the team was talented and everything, but, you know, they had so many guys and so many stoppages and all that. Same with, like, Oregon. They had so many stoppages. Like, if Oregon's, you know, didn't win a single game this year, like, no one would have been upset with them because they've only played a handful of games so far this year. But with Fox and this Cal team, like, the COVID excuse that people are giving to Mark Fox, I don't know if that applies because that applied, you know, early on in the summer and in you know, the pre-workouts, and sure, that's a big part of how the flow goes, but you haven't had a single game missed. None of your games have been canceled due to COVID. You're the only team in the conference that actually hasn't had a game postponed or canceled. And what better way to improve your team than actual game playing and game time, right? Like, you know, like, people are going to point to, oh, well, Matt Bradley got injured for a few weeks. Injuries happen in any game or in any season. Like, that's not something that you can point to and be like, that's a reason why. Like, you know, if Matt Bradley decides to transfer or move elsewhere, like, are we still going to give that excuse of like, oh, he didn't have Matt Bradley? Because Matt Bradley isn't someone that he brought in, right? It's not his recruit. Most of the guys that are on this team right now who are his best performers aren't actually his recruits. You know, his best recruits right now are Matt Bradley, is Grant, right? And potentially even Joel Brown to a certain degree, who people keep asking me why he didn't play, and clearly they didn't read my recap article, but Fox said in the postgame that he had some swelling in his Achilles, so they withheld him from the game. So that's why he didn't play. He's not in the doghouse, just injury. 8 of the guys on the roster are his recruits. 3 of those guys can barely step onto the court in the rotation, and then he relies on the 2 grad transfers that he brought in. And nothing to those guys. Like, those guys came in and were like given the task of playing that senior role on this team. But if you're going to ask people to stand by, we're a young team, we're going to grow, then you have to play the young guys to show that that's why we're going through these growing pains. You can't play the 2 grad transfers, arguably the second and third most minutes on the team so far, and say we're going through growing pains because of youth. You have youth on the roster. Like, you should be playing them. If we were losing, but we were giving like Monty Bowser like 30 minutes a game, Jalen Celestine 30 minutes a game, like, we were just going and get playing time. This year doesn't matter anyways. Like, it's a throw-up year. It's just playing like a summer rec league for, you know, a few like weeks, right? Because if everyone's going to toss up to COVID, then why not just throw on the youngsters and get them game experience to build them up in the next year? Monty hasn't played pretty much any minutes towards the end of this half and the second half of the season, and Celestine gets the starts, but he was like, you know, in terms of his minutes, just up and down, up and down. So that's why I'm so confused here. I don't know what the approach is. Like, I think it's clear, and some of the writers said it in our group chat, was just, I think it's clear that there's pressure on him to win games now because he's losing so many games. And that's why he's turning to those grad transfers to maybe pull out some of those wins. But if you're really gonna push that, like, you know, youth movement and say we're a young team and we need to keep growing, you gotta show it on the court by playing those young guys. You can't be playing 5th-year seniors. And then, like, you know, the last couple weeks there have been some weird like remarks, right? Like the talent deficiency comment, about the team, and then Ryan Betley saying that he thinks he overplayed him, and he didn't have the legs, which is real confusing because you're a fifth-year senior. Like, you don't have the legs to play a full college season. Doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, I'm not an athlete, but I would just assume that they're okay with playing a full season of basketball. So, but yeah, frustrations abound. I
still think he's here next year, whether we like it or not.
I think so too. There's no money. I went back to my when we were still with CGB. I wrote an article on his contract, right? And here's the thing. He gets like a 25% increase on his talent fee, like, or his quote unquote like total salary every year, right? Or it's like a $30,000 hike every year, and that's what gets him to that like total amount. I think you said $8 million over 5 years, but it's not flat. It's like it's increasing. But on top of that, with his buyout, it's you pay the salary of that season plus alpha of the season afterwards, but that's dependent on how many years he has left on the deal. So if we were to fire him now, the move would have to be made before April 1st, because if it's after April 1st, then it counts as the new salary year. So you'd have to pay him the entire 20. Okay, let me go back. Let's say you fired him before April 1st. Then the 2020-2021 season counts as the first year salary that you paid out. And then you would need to pay 75% of next year's salary to buy him out, to fire him without cause. If you were to wait until next season, then you would have to, one, pay him the full season amount, right, of the 2021 to 2022 season, and then 50% of the season afterwards. So, but you forget, he makes that pay increase every year. So even though you're saving 25%, you're not really saving a full 25%. So if you're thinking you're going to make that switch next year anyways, it might be better for you to bite the bullet before April 1st. From a financial standpoint. Because it's not dead money anymore. You've already paid him his salary for this season. Right? You would just need to pay 75% of next year's salary. Otherwise, you're going to be paying him a full year's worth of next season, plus, and then if you're going to fire him after next season, then plus another 50% of the season afterwards. Mathematically, I think it'd be a financially better move to do it now. But because of COVID, because of the revenue and all that stuff, it doesn't make financial sense to fire any coach unless you're Texas.
True. No, I don't know. The buyout's better than I thought. So maybe there is hope.
That's how I read it. That's how I read the contract and how I read the buyout. I might be totally wrong because I'm not a legal guy, but that when I remember reading it, I just don't remember the exact words, but that's how I wrote it in my article. So I'm trusting my 2 years past self in making that
risky move, but we'll stand by it.
Yep. Bold move, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off. But yeah, any other thoughts on the basketball stuff before we go? I know people wanted us to talk about that, but
nope. Let's go to the sunshine.
All right, let's go to some of our questions. Let me pull them up real quick on the tweeters. We got one question that says, "Where is Joel Brown?" I think I answered that question. Any news on potential replacements for Yates? I think we answered that question. So we have no more questions. Those were the two questions, I guess.
How devastating.
But we have a new segment on the Bearcast that we're going to introduce starting this week. And we're calling this segment the Victory Cannon. Kaboom. That's my sound effect. What this segment is going to be is just going to be one thing from myself and Andy that we just want to amplify, put out there for our podcast listening crowd. Just like, maybe it's a book we read this week that we really liked, or an article we read over the past week that we would really like everyone to read, or a a video game we've been playing, or a movie we watched, a TV show that we're enjoying, just anything that we're just enjoying. And, maybe if we can see if other people enjoy it as much as we do, or, get you on to learning or reading, watching, doing something new or interesting. If you think that we're interesting people, we will provide it as so. But, all right, Andy, do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Let me go second.
You want to go second?
Mm-hmm.
All right. This was a tough one this week because it's our first one, right? Like, it's a real toughie. But I'm gonna go, since everyone's at home and quarantining. What's changed over the last year? I'm gonna go with a TV show here, real quick. It's comes out every Friday on a subscription-based service. What am I leaning towards?
Wanda.
I'm not leaning towards WandaVision. See, I got you. I got
What?
you. I feel like everyone's watching WandaVision. That's such an easy pull.
Blasphemy.
My pull here is for All Mankind on Apple TV Plus. So the second season just started airing this past Friday. For those that don't know, the story is, the premise of the first season, right? Like, as the season starts, is the Russians get to the moon first in the space race, right? And that's where the sequence starts. And it's like an alternate history drama of what would have happened if the Russians got to the moon first. And then it transitions into, the Americans want to build a military base on the moon. They want to build like an outpost, and it's just like drama of the astronauts. And then the Russians put a woman on the moon, so the U.S. is like, we got to put women on the moon. So they start including women astronauts like early. Like, it's a totally retelling of world events, but it's super cool to look at, to like see all the NASA space stuff. I'm a big like sci-fi guy, but it's not really sci-fi. It's like kind of realistic sci-fi, because they talk about like Apollo 11 and the Challenger, and like all these other things. And there are some historically actual people, like Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, like they're in the show, and like prepping as astronauts to go to the moon, because they couldn't get there before the Russians did. And it's super fun. I highly recommend it if you're on Apple TV Plus. I got in on it after I watched Ted Lasso. And so, yeah, that's the one I highly recommend right now. It's super fun.
I am adding that to my list.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
So, given that it is Black History Month, and we are celebrating Black History Month, and I found a meditation instructor named Ali Simon, and she is fantastic.
You really struggle with that last name.
I thought it was going to be Sermon, and then it was Simon, and I was, yeah. But yes, Ali Simon, she's great. As far as guided meditations go, someone, I would say she really ranks high on my list. And I think you can find her at alisimon.com, and then there's some classes and workshops that she does, but just a fantastic way to either start or end your day. I'm going to listen to it right now to kind of get ready and prep for bed. So absolutely give her a listen, and don't forget to celebrate this month and the very important history of our Black friends, colleagues, and family.
Absolutely. Well, there is our first edition of the Victory Canon. And if you have anything that you think should be a part of the Victory Canon, send it our way. Let us know. If it's a book, TV show, video game, restaurant, food, whatever it may be, send it our way, and we'll look into it and see if it's something that we want to experience ourselves before we put it on the list. But yeah, send us all of your recommendations. We'd love it. Right?
Yeah, do it.
Send it in.
Send them
via Twitter. Send them via. You can send us, and this is where we can do our little sign up. So you can find us on Twitter at Golden Bearcast. You can email us at goldenbearcast@gmail.com. You can find me at Rod11HWMG. You can find Andy at
Andy JB Smoke, currently private. Oh yeah. It's a VIP follow if I follow you back.
Yeah, but you can still DM Andy. Just DM him. Let's see if he responds to DM, even though he's a private account. But yeah, that's all of our stuff. Once again, we're Golden Bearcast, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. And as always, go Bears.
Go Bears.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.